So now that we've heard the album, let's wrap up and let's give our overall rating and give our 6-string rating and talk about the album as a whole. For those of you new to the show or those of you who need a reminder, we rate out of 6 strings because this is a music podcast and a guitar has 6 strings. So 3-string strum, that's pretty much an average album. 1 string, that's going to be a really bad album. 6 strings, very good, if not great album. Then we throw in some pluses and minuses, aka sharps and flats, because again, music podcast. Yeah. So we're gonna do this now. I'll start first. JMan, I'll take the reins here. I think I'm a lot higher. I'm a lot higher on this album than I thought I would be after the first time I listened to it, because I reset my expectations and approached it more like a prog psych album. It became much better when originally I think I was still trying to find that magic that they had in their first EP. But when I reframed my expectations, I think it is much better. Definitely a step up from the last album. So much improvement there. Again, I realize it's still not for everybody. This album does require your full attention to pick out those little things and to really fully go on the journey. So I think if you're willing to commit to that, it's great. It's not one of those throw on in the background and vibe and chill outside like a Lucas Nelson in The Promise of the Reals, where that one is very much a throw on and it's going to create a good soundtrack to your day. This is one you need to sit down for. I think there's a lot of glimpses of evolution, some of those prog, psych, glam, theater elements to it. I think the production was very, very good as well, especially on the drums. I think at times, like we mentioned, the vocals, it was fully hard to understand Josh sometimes. And I'm not sure if it's just the colorful lyrics that we're not used to hearing or just a mix of all of the above, but still great vocalist, executes his range very well. I will say I don't think any of the songs are really go-to, like let's rock kind of songs, which I think brings it down just a little bit. There's none of those songs, the stuck in my head factor, if you will, when we talked about songs stuck in our head last week. I don't think there's any songs that are really going to get stuck in my head. And so I think that might hurt it a little bit. There's no big single off of this one, but Caravel, The Barbarians, Age of Machine, those are some of my favorites on here. I thought those were very, very good, but they aren't going to get stuck in my head. But that being said, overall, I'm coming in at a 4 on this one, much higher than I thought after that first one. I was worried I was going to give it like a 3 flat or even a 2 sharp because I was like, I don't get it. But appreciating it for what it is, I'm coming in at a 4 on this one.
Not bad. I kind of come in the same spot as you, where I came a little bit higher than I was expecting with my initial listen to. I think Peaceful Army had lots of promise and showed early indications of how talented the band is as a whole. So with the sophomore effort, one would expect that you kind of step up, your game with songwriting, production, genre bending, even if it's ever so lightly with changing up the genres or at least, stretching it, experimenting with instruments and sounds, including the vocals, and basically giving us something new, kind of like refreshing. I actually don't find that the album does that a lot. There's small pockets of it. It has an anthemic rock feel. In a deeper cinematic scope. And I think that's its downfall, as it tried to stay 70s glam rock, kind of think Queen almost, and kind of a harder rock Queen almost, when, the talent supersedes staying within that idea that the audience has of them with Led Zeppelin. So they pretty much stayed within their safe space of creativity a little bit. I felt a little bit too much, while given the illusion of elevated depth. Longer songs does not equate to depth. It just does it with length. So Josh's vocals are basically a little bit the same throughout from the first one, so same shtick a little bit, but he does stretch it out, and he does try to do in a couple of songs, but nothing really too deep. Songs around, the songs run around in circles a little bit too much for me, with long intros. They are necessary in some spots, but not most. Lyrics are still a weak point, but I do feel like their melodic value and the way that they fill in is very good. I just don't trust the thematic value that the lyrics presented, and I do lose interest quite a bit during and following the song "Light My Love." But what really stands out for me in this album is the cohesion of the band is evident. Their talent is immense. Danny on drums is very good. I want to see him do some more shit. I want to listen back to the first album, listen more intently on him. Yep. Adding the Wurlitzer organ through a few songs was a really nice touch. Kind of adds a little bit softer tone. You're able to kind of play around with that. The song structures, I think, in general, they fill them up very solid. Like we said, it was a good streamline in there. I feel like they do have some depth that they added to their music in many spots. So I don't want to put them on the spot where they didn't have any depth. They did. It's just it wasn't something that I was thinking that was going around. So in the long aspect, I think that as young aspiring musicians, they still put out a very good product. It's just it's kind of feels like they almost fell into a rut almost in this album where it felt like there was that middle part of the album. Those songs kind of strung together kind of similarly. So I come at it with a 3 sharp string strum on this one, which is higher than I was expecting because it was probably going to be in the 3 flat realm, just like as you spoke. So I did come up a little bit, but I would have to double check to see what I did for Peaceful Army, and I think it was just slightly up there. I think I did 4 sharp maybe.
I think that Army. Was also, we also did that at a time where we were a little more generous with our ratings. Yeah. And everything was getting kind of 4 sharps, 5 flats, somewhere in there. And I think we've recalibrated a little bit to the mean. So now we're average, so, yeah. We're basing it around, okay, 3 is average. Where does this come in here? Because I think originally it was just like we were pretty willy-nilly with our grades there.
Yeah, so I want to see for sure what I gave that one and kind of borrow the grade. But I potentially see better potential out of this one than before, but it's been a while since I listened fully to Peaceful Army. But I think this is not it's above average, but it's right around average.
Yeah,